All right, guys. Let's talk about attacking the stance. We've attacked the stance multiple times, and sometimes people see things like that and they think, "Oh, wow, they're doing the same thing they've already done." I guess I'll skip this section or this video. If you see the same thing presented by DSI again, you can about guarantee it's going to present something new to you. Professor, I always say Grandmaster, Professor Moneymaker has got a video on body alarm reaction. So do I. They are different videos with different material. That's just how it is in Dragon Society. He's done the 50 techniques, I've done the 50 techniques. In fact, he's done the 50 techniques, 2 different videos. I've done a series on it, and there's new material across all 3 sets of videos. We are not so limited in our material that we have to repeat ourselves. Usually what you'll find is if we repeat a topic, it's because we want to expose you to more on that concept, or we want to take it further, or just layer on top of it some other things to apply to it. What can you cover in a short clip? Not a whole lot. So you try to focus on 1 or 2 things and not throw out 20 or 30 things, which we could easily do. So let's talk about the stance. Okay? Now, attacking the stance is a very basic idea, but it's a very powerful idea that a lot of people, I think, miss. Whenever you look at someone's stance, if you were to draw a plus shape and then number each of these squares, like 1, 2, 3, 4, those would be like quadrants, but on the floor. Now, most human beings have 2 legs. Still waiting on the alien to show up with the 3rd or 4th leg. That would make things a lot more interesting and maybe cause us to rethink some of our principles. Until then, we can generally deal with the attackers probably standing on 2 legs more than likely. And because of that, he can only occupy 2 of those 4 squares at any given time. Now, the basic principle that we've taught before is that if you draw a line through the center of the feet, that's where he's strong. Anything perpendicular at a right angle to that is where he's weak. So just a real quick review. If Master Adams takes a stance here, then I look down at his feet, I draw a line between them. Well, there's a line that's extending this way that runs through the middle of his feet. So if I push him from here, he's a strong guy. Excuse me. If I come here and I push the same angle back that way through his feet, he's very strong. But if I were to push this way perpendicular, he's very weak. And of course, if I came behind him and chose the perpendicular line this way, he's very weak there as well. And so I can move him with 1 finger. Well, most people who have been through that training pick that up very quickly. But here's where I think they lose it. The basic concept of attacking the stance is to attack to the hole. Okay, so if I were doing an armbar, let's say, and Master Adams puts his right foot toward me, and I go here, I would look down, and only in training, you wouldn't do this in the real world, I know that. I'm not dumb enough to think in a fight I'm going to stop and look down at his feet. I've got enough experience about me that I can tell by looking at his body structure where his feet are. I got a pretty good sense of that. Plus, before he threw the punch, I have awareness to see how he was standing and which foot moved and all that without just looking down. So, no, I'm not stupid enough to think you look down. This is training. That's why we practice, right? So in training, I want you to really take note of where his feet are and say, where is the hole? Well, there's a hole up here. Think of the square. Where's his feet? He occupies 2 of the 4, so there's 2 where he's strong, there's 2 where he's weak. Okay? So if I do the armbar and I push toward where he's weak, he has an easy out and he can move. When you're looking at martial arts movements, this is what Professor Moneymaker talks about, the difference in the life-taking or the life-preserving aspects of the art, which in Japanese is typically broken down into the do and the jitsu. The do being more of the sport, the character-building side of the arts, like judo or karate do, and then the jitsu being more of the combative, the jiu-jitsu, the karate jitsu, and so on. Okay? But there's even more beyond that, but we're going to keep it as simple as those 2, yin and yang, okay? 2 simple concepts. Well, when I'm attacking his body structure, when I'm working with people on video, especially my friends, like Mr. Adams here, I will allow them to set up, because they know where the technique's at. They'll set the hole themselves. And if they don't, I set it for them. And I make sure that I apply my pressure toward the hole. Now, when we do demonstrations and seminars and such, or we make videos, we want dynamic movement. We want to look good. So a lot of times we'll attack toward that hole, and you'll see the person go flying. And they may bounce over there somewhere, or he may bounce back here somewhere, and he'll move quite a distance. And you've probably seen me do a lot of little demos where I barely move and the guy goes flying. When we do that, everybody gets all impressed by how far Master Adams here falls, or how far he flies off screen or whatever. And some of the other guys that I don't love as much as Mr. Adams, then maybe I throw them even further or bounce them even harder. And so I'll attack the stance for the theatrics. I'll attack the stance when I don't want to harm the person in the real world. That is the part of the art where I'm trying to preserve his health. I'm trying to stop him, but I'm not trying to do permanent damage to him. Here's what's important though. When I switch from the life-preserving to the life-taking part of the art, I attack to where his feet are. I attack his structure to where he cannot escape, where he cannot move, where he cannot get away from the pressure and his body is stuck. Okay? So if I were going to apply this arm bar, Mr. Adams puts his right foot forward, I'll apply the pressure when I'm being nice over here where the hole is. Okay, so I would push this way to get him to move. You see how easily that happens. When I want this to change, I change the direction of the force to attack toward where his foot is. And when I do that, you see it was very hard for him, and I cut my pressure way back because I still don't want to hurt him, but it was very hard for him to find the escape. He started to collapse, and all of a sudden that foot was stuck there and he couldn't easily get away from it. And that's very important to understand that difference. When you attack the body that way and you put a significant amount of force on that elbow, or in an S-lock or center lock, a significant amount of force on the wrist, you're going to cause serious harm because they can't escape. Their stance does not allow them to escape. And then we'll bring other principles like core locking and things like that so that their whole structure locks up to where their structure's locked and their stance is locked. So you can layer these principles deeper. Okay, but I want you to understand that if I turn my feet toward the core of his body and I allow him to have right foot forward and I direct the pressure toward his left foot, then what I do to this arm, he has very little means of escape. How would he escape? He would have to go away from me. How does he go away from me when I'm controlling this arm and this wrist? He can't go away from me. His structure's locked up. If I push, he's got nowhere to go. And if I compress this and sink it with my body weight, the more he sinks, the less he can move. It limits his mobility. So dropping my core, dropping my center, rooting my body, and working against that stance will break him very quickly and very easily. And I can do it with any type of joint lock, and I can do it with strikes. You want to look impressive? Hit him and watch him fly. Hit him where the hole is. You want to really hurt him or knock him out, attack him where he can't escape by attacking the structure. So understand that most people focus on one half of attacking the stance, and that is going toward the hole. That's okay. That's the safest thing to teach people to do. But what I've just showed you is how to attack the structure to break it, not to give him the escape. So now we're in the life-taking. We're going to destroy, we're going to maim, we're going to break, or we're going to kill with our movements. And we haven't yet gone through the details of how those things happen. Perhaps we'll get into that at a future date. But right now I hope you understand the difference in attacking the hole versus attacking the stance. And there is a difference in those two concepts. If you decide to work this with your partner, really watch your pressure. When you get it right, you'll sink their weight onto their feet, limit their mobility, and then attack the stance where they can't get away, and you'll hold their structure so that escape isn't an option. So when you're teaching, be very careful doing that. It's funny because the things that people get most impressed with in a live demonstration or a live seminar are the things that are the least dangerous parts of the art. It's the things that we have to really cut our pressure back and really be careful about what we do that don't look as dramatic and people aren't nearly as impressed with. So a lot of times you'll see us turn our feet out, rotate our body, we'll attack toward the hole in their stance, and that's because it's a win-win. It's safer for my partner, it's safer for the people out there learning the techniques because they're not as likely to injure their partner, and they like it. It's more impressive to them. But the real art is you got to cut your pressure back, and you're going to run the risk of injuring somebody much more easily. So be very careful as you do this and as you apply this information. I really think you could do some damage if you're not careful. So really cut your pressure back and be gentle, and take care of your partner, because remember, it's their turn to do it to you next. And so they may not be as forgiving when it's your turn. And we're going to cut here before Master Adams gets to do it to me. So we're going to stop there, and we're going to call it a night there.